It's 2002. Brazil has just won their fifth World Cup title. Some of the top crime films of the year are City of God, John Q, and Irreversible. In Trinidad and Tobago, Uncle Patos is Prime Minister.
My mother used to say, show me a liar and I'll show you a thief.
The murder toll for the year will be about 171. Anaya George has won Road March with his soca titled Trinidad. But let's zoom in on the affluent neighborhood of Westmoreland, specifically the International School of Port of Spain, where shots rang out on November 20th as 17-year-old Philip Siratan became Trinidad's first school shooter. Please note that school shooters crave notoriety and desperately want their names in the history books, so we will never be mentioning his name again. Henceforth, he will be referred to as the shooter. Our story unfolds at the International School of Port of Spain. November 20th, 2002 starts off like any other Wednesday for security officer William Ramrine. He's on duty at the International School, where he's charged with the responsibility of keeping staff and students safe. And now he pulls up and drops off our 17-year-old shooter. The shooter tries to gain access to the compound, but is rightfully denied by Ramnarine. Up to this point, the shooter looks like a normal 17-year-old. Some months earlier, he had done the entrance exam for the school, but he had yet to be accepted. It was now obvious that Officer Ramnarine didn't think he was a student, so the shooter tried deception. He said to the officer he was here to collect his SAT results, but Officer Ramnarine was steadfast in his decision. Seeing the probability of his plan being executed decreasing, the shooter activated the plan a bit earlier. He drew the 9mm pistol he had stolen from his father's car and fired a volley of shots at the innocent security officer. Two of the bullets struck Ramnarine, so he yelled to his co-worker Anthony Ralph for help. There was little Ralph could do to stop the shooter, but thankfully Ralph himself did not become another victim, especially since Officer Ramnarine was already in a critical condition. Once the perimeter had been breached, the international school now belonged to the shooter. He was the captain now. He fired shots inside the school while he terrorized staff and students. As the panic ripped through the kids, the shooter snatched a trembling 14-year-old boy and held him hostage. At some point during his rampage, he whipped out his phone and called his sister. Thankfully, the TTPS arrived before the menace took the lives of any of the kids. But the turmoil was not yet over. Note: school shootings are generally meant as a final act, so the outcome for a school shooter, who are almost always male, is written from the time he fires that first shot. Hence, the TTPS did not encounter a timid 17-year-old just wanting to put down his gun and go home. Instead, they were greeted with a hail of gunfire. The international school was now the site of a shootout, but what people seem to forget is that the TTPS do have some officers that are willing and able to engage in these scenarios. And these officers are far more capable than your average citizen. The shooter was riddled with bullets, including a fatal shot to the head. When the smoke cleared, the intended finality of his action was confirmed. A suicide note was found in the shooter's pocket. However, for transparency, it must be stated that some have argued against it being declared a suicide note. But don't worry, we'll touch on the controversial note as well as the call the shooter made to his sister as he was traumatizing the students. News of the attack was carried by a couple international sites. Hit the like button if you're interested in seeing similar content, because we have a lot more videos coming up. We'll take a glance at where our shooter comes from. Let's start our drive from the Queen's Park Savannah on the roundabout at the entrance to St. Anne's and at the base of Lady Young Road. We'll head up to the shooter's address via one of the two main routes. When we're leaving the shooter's street, we'll use the second route. He's from the generally peaceful community of Cascade. You have to turn off the main road onto 2nd Avenue, which takes you to his street. Okay, first promising sign is the security post with a drop bar. As we know, in Trinidad, only certain neighborhoods are given this privilege. Really nice houses here. This looks like a neighborhood you'd want to raise a family in. This is Mount Ann Drive in 2nd Avenue, Cascade. This is the street our shooter would have lived on. I won't take you to the house, but I'll take you around the neighborhood. So this is his street. A quick look at the two parallel streets show what looks like on the exterior to be a great place to live as a kid. Nothing nefarious jumps out at you. Perhaps the primary school he attended may give us some insight into his behavior. Let's head back to the Queen's Park Savannah and onward to his primary school. But we do have some future episodes based in Cascade. Just zip past the Briggs Hotel and we're at the Queen's Park Savannah. We'll pick up again at Westmore as we head to his primary school. Certainly it will be devastating to see that maybe he suffered like so many other Trinbagonian students. We all know lots of primary school children have to endure institutions with dilapidated facilities that are poorly staffed, underfunded, and clearly unsafe, essentially exposing children to the harsh truths of social class before they can even calculate 2 plus 2. So this is Donruss Preparatory School. This is the primary school that the shooter attended, nestled in Westmoreland. At the time of the shooting, the principal here described him as a gentle soul that kept himself, but was always very well behaved and very polite. Now, for the record, Donruss is recognized as an exceptional school. I remember recently a leader of one of the, not the major political parties, but one of the other political parties said it was one of the best in the country, if not, well, he considered one of the best in the country, if not the Caribbean. So it is known as an excellent educational institution. So Donruss bounds with St. Anthony's College on one end, and on the other end it bounds with the river that you see as you pass International School heading west. That river that you cross over, that's the other boundary for Donruss. So we can't blame the actions of this shooter on the educational system because he attended Donruss. I mean, they have computer labs for the kids since the early 90s, possibly even 80s, you know, so I don't know, we have to find another reason for him. In between Donruss and the attack, the shooter attended St. Augustine Community College for about 3 years. The principal there described him as an average student who usually stayed by himself and just had a few friends. The principal also noted that he had been pulled from the school about 1.5 years before the school shooting. They could not say why he was removed, but added that he had never had any major discipline problems at their school. I'm not going to reveal any more secrets. I am taking it all to hell with me. That was a line taken directly from the note found on the shooter. Now, this shooter went to a good school. He came from a good neighborhood. He came from a good financial household. So we might ask, well, what caused this action? Now cut to the hundreds of videos of school violence we see, where we assume the students in those videos are from a particular socioeconomic background or strata. But we don't ask any questions then. We just write them off automatically. The elephant in the room is obviously mental health. I have not strayed too far down the mental health corridor because in 2002, the father shut down that discussion by saying, although his son was not too outspoken, he was laid back, not depressed, never drank, smoked, or did drugs. Also, I haven't been able to find any info showing in the aftermath of the incident the family came out to ask for forgiveness or understanding for the shooter's acts due to any type of mental health issues, or even an explanation that would have tied in mental health. But I think it would be fair for us to ask certain questions, and I assume individually we will make our own inferences. But if you're extending leniency based on what you believe to be underlying psychological issues, just remember you may be called upon to extend similar courtesies to other violent perpetrators his age. But let's be honest, for many people, being a school shooter may in itself be enough evidence of psychological issues, especially considering that in the original reports, there were claims that people had heard the shooter talk about suicide when he was on the phone with his sister. And there are reports that state Some of the investigating officers were told by a relative that the shooter was a troubled young man. However, the father was adamant that the shooter's phone call to his sister was a cry for help. The father said it wasn't a discussion about suicide. He said the shooter was saying, "If you don't come and get me, I will be killed." But to keep things in perspective, please remember the shooter made the phone call to his sister after he had tried to kill the security officer that was just trying to earn a living. And the only reason he was killed in the end is because he chose to enter into a shootout with the police. So it is possible some of the denial by the father about the day in question, and maybe even his son's personality, could have been what some people consider the first stage of grief. It is possible this was the father's way of coping, but it could also be possible that he was absolutely correct about everything. We will never know for sure. But was it just denial by a father? A dad refusing to believe ill of his son at such a tragic time? That would be okay. He had just lost a son. But please remember the parallel cried by so many mothers when their sons are killed in police shootouts or in criminal activity. We all know it, so say it with me. He was a good boy. But you let me know what you think in the comments below. Should he get the same amount of sympathy as other criminals his age? Should he get less sympathy? Does he deserve any sympathy at all? In his suicide note, he attacked black people. He referred to them as black in the note. But as far as I know, he was actually Douglas. So his father was East Indian and his mother is black. So maybe there was not really a racial element in the attack, especially since he went after the international school. So there are a lot of other schools, if it is he really had a problem with black people that he could have gone after, that would have been more fruitful in his endeavors. I know some of you may find the language used to describe the shooter and his actions as harsh, especially since he's 17. However, had he been from another demographic, this is a language that would have been used by the media and everyone would have been comfortable with it. Let me take you on a drive to international school and around the neighborhood as we talk. We'll start off from Westmore. Since November 2002, no negative headlines have emanated from the international school. As a matter of fact, the school learned from the attack. They now do active shooter reenactment drills to help students and staff appropriately navigate such a situation. The full drills include TTPS, bomb squad, fire department, and ambulance. The drill was started by Head of Security Anthony Ralph. You may remember, he was the security officer that tried to help Officer William Ramnarine when he was shot. The staff and students that were attacked in 2002 will never forget the fear they experienced. In 2002, this was one of the few crimes committed with a licensed firearm. And for the shooter's family, losing a son and a brother is dreadful beyond words. But as the years droned on by, I hope the family has found a slither of solace in the fact that no students were killed. At least they know their loved one didn't put another family through the torment they are experiencing. Because regardless of how it ended, that was still their brother and son. If anyone involved in this story wants to reach out to give their 2 cents, please feel free to comment or email at 1060crimes@gmail.com. What if in the note found in his pocket, he had dedicated the attack to a particular group, religious or otherwise? Would that change your view of him and or the attack? Let me know below. Before we wrap up, I'll read you this haunting line from the shooter's note. By now I should be dead. If I am not, that means a lot of other people are. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.